Program Director, the SADTU National Leadership, led by General Secretary Comrade Mukwena Maluleke, SADTU Eastern Cape Provincial Executive Committee, members of the Provincial Executive Committee for Education, MEC for Education in the Eastern Cape, Refundile Kate, principals of the winning schools, members of the National Association of School Governing Bodies, and members of the Kabashe and Krekeza families who are SADTU Eastern Cape honored guests, sponsors, our Ds, who I believe are the reason we are here today, and I believe are the most important people in this gathering today. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, comrades, kindly accept my profound apologies for not being able to interact with you directly on this important day, where like-minded comrades are gathering to advance SADTU's noble goal of creating a learning nation. I feel that the province that is the home of legends is a home away from home. For me, I recall addressing an education summit here in the province while I was the MEC for Education in Limpopo. Now that I'm in the National Executive Committee of the ANC, I've been deployed as the convener of deployees here in the Eastern Cape, both in the previous National Executive and in the present one. I had every intention of honoring this invite in person, but unfortunately, I've had to attend to other responsibilities from Parliament. I feel truly honored to have been invited to address comrades who have embraced a culture of nurturing our future by ensuring that young people get good quality education. I am told that this achievement recognition awards were started in 2018 with only 111 members being honored. I hear that today a whopping 410 awardees will be honored. This is great progress. The achievements of these educators are mirrored by the steady improving matric results. In recent years, the province has recorded the following results for matriculants. 2022, 73%, 2021, 73%, 2020 was 68.1%, 2019 76.8%, and 2018 70.5%. You could see in the middle there in 2020 that COVID did play a role. Well done to all the winners and to SADTU Eastern Cape for recognizing good performance. As a former MEC for Education in a rural province, I'm aware of the challenges that are faced by educators in the Eastern Cape. I have always believed that good leaders do not necessarily have to have titles. They need to act in a manner that inspires confidence from their peers and the learners they lead. As I have said, throughout the period when I was the MEC for Education in Limpopo, the Eastern Cape and Limpopo used to be at the bottom of the pack. Every year matric results were announced. Either Limpopo is at the bottom and Eastern Cape is second last, or Limpopo is second last and Eastern Cape is at the bottom. That is what used to happen. I notice now that Eastern Cape seems to be getting out of that relegation zone of education because your results are improving. And I think there's something about this province that we need to celebrate. Before the matric results were announced, the Auditor General came to Cabinet to announce that the most improved province in terms of audits in government is the Eastern Cape. It was not, of course, the best in terms of audit, but it was the most improved, which is important. And a few months later, when matric results were announced, we found that the biggest improvement is also recorded in the Eastern Cape. Please cheer yourselves. Throughout the time I was an MEC for education, we used to have schools that were called dysfunctional schools. And we had the definition of what a dysfunctional school is. We'll decide that any school that gets less than 20% is regarded as dysfunctional. A ritual will then start at the beginning of the year to visit these dysfunctional schools, listen to the teachers, and listen to the principal. And of course, you also listen to the learners. But quite often, the leaders of those schools, the principals and the teachers, will always complain of the same thing. It doesn't matter which dysfunctional school you visit, the complaint is the same. It's about resources, it's about money, it's about the budget. And that will be a song each and every year. It is important, of course, to have resources, but I can assure you, in my experience, if you have got resources, financial and material, but you don't have dedicated and hardworking human beings, it doesn't matter. And we have examples of this about resources, which I want to mention here today. As Limpopo was always number last, as I said, I remember a story in 1996 where one white lady who's very rich decided to reward the man working his garden for lawn service, dedicated and honest service. And he said, please bring one of your children to me. I'm going to educate that child until the child is tired of schooling. That's an offer which you get once in a lifetime. Of course, the child was taken from Limpopo to Sandton, where he was enrolled in one of the best schools. That child had passed standard 1. But when he arrived in Sandton, they assessed the child and they wrote a report that there's no evidence that this child has been at school. This lady, because she was very rich and perhaps influential, she wrote a letter to Tata Nelson Mandela. That was the second year of the presidency of Tata Nelson Mandela. She wrote a letter complaining that we can't live in this type of country where we read reports like this for a child who has attended school for 3 years and yet there's no evidence. Tata Nelson Mandela sent a letter to me and said, can you account MEC? What's wrong? What happened? Of course, I relate what I'm told when I visit dysfunctional schools. I sang a song to Tata Nelson Mandela about resources, buildings, equipment, and all that. Tata Nelson Mandela started approaching companies to build schools in Limpopo. But then he also included Eastern Cape to try and solve this problem. One of the first schools built in that program was built by PHP Bulletin It's somewhere in Skukune, which happens to be my home district, which unfortunately is the district that's produced the worst results in Limpopo. Unfortunately, right up to today, that's still happening. Tata Nelson Mandela asked them to rebuild that school. And they did it. They renovated, built all the facilities that are needed at school, school hall, library, laboratories, and even put a kitchen for the teachers. When the school was ready to be opened, he was unable to attend. He sent me and the late leader of the Youth League, Comrade Peter Mugaba, to go together on his behalf to open that school. I still remember that Saturday. Comrade Peter was in Mahiking, and he tells me that he had to wake at 4 o'clock in the morning, drive all the way to that school which is in the eastern part of Limpopo. And when we arrived there, me and him, the place was empty. There was nobody altogether. Not the teachers, not the principal, not the villagers. And it was already 10 o'clock. I was stunned. And round about after midday, PHP Bulletin, as part of the celebrations of opening that school, have asked aeroplanes to pass by and drop people on parachutes. Only when those people came down on parachutes, the whole village came out running towards the school, simply because they were seeing people falling from the sky. They now came in large numbers. That was already 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I decided with Comrade Peter to stop that event. Then we called a big meeting of the community and the unions and the traditional leaders and the civic movements in that school. I went there alone without Comrade Peter Mugaba to try and talk to the people. And guess what? The principal was not there that day. He didn't come. And of course I was fuming. On Monday, he sent me a medical certificate that he was sick. As fate will have it, the doctor who wrote that medical certificate happened to be the same person who bought my practice when I was still practicing medicine before I came into government. So I was very used to him. And I phoned him. I said, look, I know there is doctor-patient relationship, but we know, we belong to the same profession. What is this medical certificate all about? Well, he said, well, let me be honest to you. This gentleman said Madiba has built a big school for him and give him all the facilities that are ever needed in a school. But he is scared because he's unable to produce anything out of those facilities. And so he was scared to come to this meeting. And that's why he became ill immediately, because he can't cope. I then said, but all he had to tell us is that I can't cope. Give me a smaller school, because this one indeed has got facilities, lots and lots of them. But unfortunately, the man could not manage it. And I'll tell you something which I think I'm brave enough to mention today. The following week, this gentleman went to join SADTU. Before that, he was a member of Tuata, which later became BEU. He went to join SADTU. And you know why? Because there was a belief that whatever you do, SADTU will defend you. Meaning, even if you do wrong things. I'm very excited today to realize that that part of our history is now in the past. Comrade Mugwena, I believe that's no longer happening. I still remember at some stage one deputy president of SADTU, who was a lady, bravely in a meeting, he bravely said, if you find 3 teachers who are drunk, you know that at least 2 of them belong to SADTU out of that 3. Now I can see with these awards, those days are over. Now let me go to my story of facilities, because I believe that we can do the best with what we have at any one time. And the little you have, you can do something out of it. I visited lots of schools where something like that is happening. And I hold a view, by the way, that for a school to be successful, it needs good leadership in the form of principal and the teachers. Let me come to this question of hard work or talent or being a genius. You know, before I went to medical school, I was actually a teacher. Many people don't know this part of my history. They just believe I passed matric, went to medical school like other doctors. No, I didn't have money. I have to go and work as a teacher for 1 year. And during that time, I was earning 99 rand. 90 rand per month. 90 rand per month. As a privately paid teacher. But in that, I was teaching maths and science. I was teaching Form 2 and Form 3. I'm sure today is grade 9 and grade 10. In grade 9, there was a young girl. That girl was brilliant. In fact, I believe she was more brilliant than myself, even being a teacher. Because in the grade 10 class, when they can't solve a mathematics problem, I'll call her in, try to shame them into action. I give her a chalk and stand there at the board and ask them to give her any problem they could not solve in that particular chapter. And she will solve it. And you know what? They just dismissed her by saying she's talented. This one, Kaspedi Baru Ufilwe, is talented, and there's nothing they can do about it. I want to challenge that view because clearly research and experience has shown that nothing beats hard work. In fact, I want to quote Tim Notke when he said, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. So nothing can replace hard work. That is why one of the eminent scientists, the man who invented the electric bulb from which we are enjoying electric light, Thomas Edison, he once said genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. Meaning you must sweat. You have to work very hard in order to make a difference. Now, back to my story of dysfunctional schools. I invented a term of my own. I don't know whether that is allowed in English, to go on inventing your own terms, but you won't find it in a dictionary. I said all the dysfunctional schools that I visited, they lack one thing, and only one thing: the concept of schooling. Schooling. I invented that term. You know that schooling, you use that word in everyday life, but I invented it as a term of what dysfunctional schools lack. And what is schooling? Just getting to school on time. Sit in the classroom on time. Let the teacher be there on time. Let schoolwork be done. at the time it's supposed to. Let there be afternoon studies. Let there be homework, and the learners must do that homework. Let there be afternoon or morning studies or extra studies. That's what I call schooling. And I can assure you, many schools achieved success simply because of that formula. That you will never find in a dysfunctional school, no matter how many facilities they have. That's why one of my colleagues in Mpumalanga, who was the MEC of Education at that time, invited me to address school principals and inspectors in an event more or less like this. But that was an event for motivation which used to take place in Mpumalanga. And during our discussion, they've heard about a school called Mbilu, which I believe many of you have actually heard about. Mbilu, a rural school in Venda, in Limpopo, which competes with some of the best in the country, some of the best and well-equipped school in the country, And everybody has heard about it. And they said, please, can you bring the principal of Mbilu, MEC Motsoaledi, to come and address and motivate us? We want to see the ingredients. We want to be motivated by him. Now, I knew that principal. I told them that no, that man is going to bore you. Firstly, he is not really a public speaker. He doesn't speak a lot, but he will do a lot. And I told them that I'm aware that even in Limpopo itself, lots and lots of schools hire Kumbis to go to Mbilu to see what's happening. And they come back very disappointed, extremely so, because they believe they are going to find some miracles which are out of this world, which they've never seen before. No, they found an ordinary school where people come early to study, where nobody ever gets late to school, where work is done in the classroom and the teacher is always present, where homework is written and marked, written by learners and marked by the teachers, where every Saturday, regardless of the time of the year, they come for morning classes, for Saturday classes, at least up to midday. That's what they found at Mbilu. And they go back disappointed because that's what they don't want to do. In other words, they don't want to do this hard work. They just believe something can happen. I'm sure many of you know a brand called Estee Lauder, which is perfumes and all sorts of condiments which people love to decorate themselves. The founder of that once said, I did not get there by wishing for it or hoping for it, but I got there by working hard for it. So I think I've given you enough codes and enough material to realize that nothing whatsoever beats hard work. And I believe the people who are being awarded today are different from the others simply because of their hard work. There are people who still believe in the issue of genes, that no, somebody has got better genes to make them a better teacher, or to make them a good principal, to make them good at mathematics or science. That is in the genes. There are people who even believe they can't lose weight. They are fed because of their genes, and there is nothing they can do. Scientists have actually discovered that that's not true. The genes contribute only 10% of what you are. be it at school, be it in the athletic field, be it in the soccer field, be it in the water when people are competing in swimming, be it in the classroom, your genes contribute only 10%. The other 90% is contributed by the environment which yourself can create, the circumstances under which you are to live, and your behavior, how you behave every day, and of course your attitude to life. All those come together to give you the 90% of your success. And that's why I'm repeating. Hard work beats talent when talent is not working hard enough. So these teachers in Mpumalanga, I eventually sent the principal of Mbilu. And as I told them, they were very unimpressed. Because he came in to tell them exactly what they don't want to hear. He told them about hard work. He told them about schooling. What's happening at Mbilu about schooling. These are the things they know, but are not willing to do. Because they are difficult things. Because hard work doesn't come easy. So I want to tell those who are not yet receiving awards that it simply means they didn't work hard enough. It's not because they don't have talent, or they don't have the genes, or they are not geniuses. It's not because of that. It is hard work. And I want to challenge them that anybody who can decide to work hard from today will be standing there to receive that talent. As I told you, I was a teacher before. I attended the boarding school in Polokwane. And in the school where I came to teach, my two younger brothers were attending there. And they did something that I was not used to. I was attending a boarding school which was headed by Afrikaners who were very strict, extremely strict, I must state, where you will study and you will even have a holiday, because during school holidays, during a public holiday, not school holidays, you'll have to go and study in the morning, come back for lunch, go back to study, go back in the evening again. 3 times a day, you'll study. You'll even, which is not a holiday. I was used to that. I was very much used to that. And I think it contributed to me getting a first class in matric. First class at that time. The symbols, I don't understand them very well. During our time, you just get a first class or a second class or a third class. And I did get that first class because of the hard work that we've been subjected to. Then I go to this rural school in my village. How? I never saw my younger brother studying. And I decided here and there, I said, you guys, you're not sleeping until I sleep. When I'm marking, they sit there. They were in Form 2. I think it's grade 9, yes. I'll tell them you are not sleeping until I sleep. And I could mark up to midnight while I was forcing them to study. And guess what? One of them got number 1 at the end of that year. Whereas in June, he was somewhere at number 50 or so. But at the end of the year, within 6 months, he was number 1. And today, as I'm speaking, he's a mining engineer. Even though he had to leave the country to fight for freedom and attended school in Somafco, where they started him from maths and science from the scratch. But he started appreciating hard work, that without it, as many of our rural schools believe, that you just sit in the classroom and you listen to a teacher once, and the teacher also believes you just teach and you go away. No extra effort. It is not true. When I motivate youngsters and even teachers, I used to ask them about a man called David Beckham, who many of you will know, was a British soccer star. I used to ask them, what is he famous for? David Beckham was famous for free kicks. Many a goalkeeper will suffer, even if they get ready for him when he's kicking a free kick. They start trembling because he's definitely going to score. More often than not, he'll score them. And many people believe he was talented. I was made to learn that after a normal practice, he remains alone to practice those free kicks with which he was frustrating many goalkeepers. That's what we call hard work. Things that don't just come coming in on the wheels of inevitability. You've got to work hard for them. And that's the only message I've got to you today. I don't have any other message. These awardees here who are receiving awards today have worked harder than those who did not receive their awards. And so if they join them to work harder, you may find that this hall is full of awardees. You are awarding thousands and thousands at the same time. Good luck to you, and thank you. And once more, I want to congratulate SADTU for having started something like this, because I can tell you the future for our youngsters is very bright with you at the top. Thank you very much.